Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing clothes no longer exist. No shirts, no pants, no jackets. Because humanity never invented clothing in the first place. You step outside and nobody is wearing anything. Your neighbors are not concerned. Your boss is not concerned. Society functioned for thousands of years without clothing.
Clothing feels so connected to being human that most of us never question it. We question governments, religions, technology. But clothing? We simply accept it.
Every morning, billions of people open a closet, stare at fabric and convince themselves they have nothing to wear, despite owning 27 different options.
At some point, nobody wore clothes. Then later, people did. Who was the first person to look at an animal skin and think, I will wear that?
Today we follow one of the most fascinating detective stories in human history, involving ancient humans, ice ages, evolution, fashion, and bizarrely enough, lice.
Biologically weird. Lions have fur, wolves have fur, bears have fur, chimpanzees have fur. And then there is us, looking completely unfinished by nature.
Who was the first human to look at an animal skin and think, maybe I should wear this? Were they cold? Were they trying to protect themselves? Or were they trying to impress someone? The answer turns out to be far stranger and far more fascinating than most people imagine today.
To understand clothing, we first need to understand something strange about humans themselves. Compared to our closest relatives, humans are almost completely hairless across most of our bodies. Lions have fur. Wolves have fur. Bears have fur. Gorillas have fur. There is one small problem. The timeline does not work. Modern humans began Africa roughly 70,000 years ago, but evidence suggests clothing may be significantly older than that discovery. In some cases, tens of thousands of years older, which means people were already wearing clothes before reaching icy regions. If clothing was not invented for cold weather, then why was it invented at all?
To answer this, we need the most unexpected witness in human history. A creature living alongside us for thousands of years. The humble louse. Unfortunately, humans have two types of lice. Head lice live in hair. Body lice live in clothing, specifically in the folds, seams, and fabric of the garments we wear daily. Body lice cannot survive without clothes. No clothes, no body lice. At some point, body lice evolved from head lice, creating a perfect prehistoric timestamp hidden inside parasitic insect DNA. Researchers discovered body lice diverged from head lice between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago, long before cities, agriculture, pyramids, or any written history existed anywhere. Humans were dressing themselves often enough for evolution to notice and create an entirely new species. The lice knew we got dressed before any historian ever did. If warmth was not the original reason, what was? The first explanation is simple. Protection. Ancient humans lived outdoors with no houses, no medicine, no sunscreen at all. Sharp rocks, thorny plants, biting insects, intense sunlight every single day. Even a simple animal hide draped over the body could dramatically reduce injuries and suffering. But there may have been something much deeper happening. Something uniquely human. Something we still do every single day without thinking. Social signaling. Humans are obsessed with identity. We constantly communicate our status, our group, our beliefs, our personality. We did this long before civilization ever existed on Earth. Archaeologists found evidence that humans used red ochre pigments for body decoration at least 200,000 years ago, before clothing may have even existed anywhere. Imagine an ancient human covered in red pigment near a campfire. Maybe it symbolizes strength, maybe group membership, maybe spiritual meaning. They are communicating something deeply important. Add an animal hide, then feathers, then shells, then patterns. Suddenly clothing becomes more than protection. It becomes a message, a statement, a story told without any words. The moment clothing begins communicating information, fashion is born. The first fashion industry was probably hunter-gatherers arguing loudly over who got to wear the leopard skin. For a very long time, clothing was crude. A skin thrown over the shoulders. A hide tied around the waist. Functional and basic. The prehistoric equivalent of wearing a blanket. Hence, something extraordinary happened. Around 50,000 years ago, humans produced sophisticated bone needles. Not just sharp tools. Actual needles with eyes designed specifically for sewing clothing.
Now clothing could be shaped, fitted, and tailored. Layers joined together, openings sealed, heat trapped more effectively. Clothing transformed into... Take a thin bird bone, carefully shape it, polish it, then drill a tiny hole without breaking it. That is engineering, that is planning, that is pure human imagination working brilliantly. That tiny object helped humans survive environments that would have killed them. It may be one of the most important inventions ever created. Most people have never heard of it. Then the climate changed. Suddenly, clothing became far more than decoration. Earth experienced severe, devastating climatic fluctuations across every region. Only a few thousand may have been left alive. Every person today descended from that group. Groups with better clothing technology had enormous advantages. Layered garments trapped heat. Fitted garments reduced exposure. A well-made garment was not fashion. Sewn clothing protected vulnerable areas like the neck, wrists, and ankles. The difference between surviving winter and dying from exposure often came down entirely to craftsmanship. Eventually, humans expanded beyond Africa into Europe and Asia, into the harshest environments on Earth. This achievement is often described as a triumph of human intelligence. And it was. But intelligence alone was not enough. A genius standing naked in Siberia is still a naked person in Siberia. Clothing completely changed what was humanly possible for our species. Humans did not adapt biologically to every environment. Instead, we created portable environments. We built a second skin, one we could modify whenever conditions changed around us. Humanity conquered the world, not because we evolved faster than nature, but because we learned to redesign our that made every environment survivable for our species.
At some point, something remarkable happened. Clothing stopped being about survival. It became culture. Across civilizations, clothing acquired deep meaning. Kings wore things common people simply could not.
Priests wore special garments. Warriors displayed status through clothing. Ceremonies required specific attire. Mourning required specific attire. Even the dead were buried in carefully chosen specific clothing. Clothing became a visual language. Without saying a single word, people could communicate rank, occupation, wealth, religion, and identity. No other animal does anything remotely similar to this. Peacocks display feathers. Cuttlefish change colors. But humans create symbols. And clothing became one of our most powerful symbols ever invented throughout all of human history. Even the earliest textiles found by archaeologists contain evidence of dyes and decoration. People were not simply making fabric. They were making meaning. Clothing was always a canvas for identity. Here is the fascinating part. You are still participating in this ancient tradition right now. The clothes you wear were not chosen randomly. They communicate something whether you realize it or not. Comfort, professionalism, personality, wealth, taste, identity. Exactly like decorated hides worn by ancestors tens of thousands of years ago. The materials changed. The meaning never disappeared at all. Clothing was never just about warmth. It was never just about protection. It was always about being human. Expressing who we are is as ancient as the need to eat or sleep.
So why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? The honest answer is probably all of the above. Protection, warmth, social signaling, status, identity. All of it together simultaneously.
Comfort, professionalism, identity. Exactly like decorated hides worn by tens of thousands of years ago. The materials changed, the meaning never disappeared at all.
Why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? The honest answer is probably all of the above. Status, culture, and identity all combined together simultaneously. What started as a practical solution became one of humanity's defining inventions. A tool, a technology, a language, an artifact on Earth. The most remarkable thing is that the story never ended. Every morning, billions of people continue it. We open closets, make choices, and communicate something about ourselves to the entire world. We get cold. We get creative. We get dressed. Then we spend the rest of the day complaining we have absolutely nothing to wear. Some things about being human truly never change.
But what about you? If you could travel back 150,000 years into the past, would you actually survive without any clothes at all? Think carefully before answering that. Millions of years of evolution removed our fur. Tens of thousands of years of ingenuity replaced it with something better. Something we could control, modify, personalize, and completely customize for ourselves. Clothing is the intersection of every uniquely human quality: biology, creativity, social intelligence, toolmaking, cultural transmission. No other invention touches so many aspects of what it means to be human. From the first animal hide thrown over bare shoulders to the clothes you wear right now, one unbroken thread connects every human who has ever lived on this extraordinary planet. The human sweating system is extraordinary. No other primate comes close. This biological air conditioning made us the greatest endurance hunters this planet has ever seen throughout all of history. Chase an animal long enough under the blazing sun and it will collapse from overheating. A human with no fur but millions of sweat glands wins every single time without exception. The evolutionary split between head lice and body lice is one of the strangest clocks in scientific history. These tiny parasites accidentally preserved evidence no archaeologist could ever find alone. Body lice needed a habitat that did not exist before clothing. Their very existence proves humans were wearing clothes consistently enough for an entirely new parasite species to evolve completely. 200,000 years ago. That is how far back human body decoration goes. Long before bone needles existed, our ancestors were painting themselves with deliberate purpose and deep intention. Body decoration around ancient campfires was social technology. These patterns communicated which group you belonged to, what your status was, which ceremonies you had participated in throughout your life. When body paint met animal hide, something profound happened. Decoration transferred from skin to clothing. The garment became a canvas. Expression and protection merged into one single wearable statement forever. Whoever wore the most impressive garment had social power. Social power meant better access to food, mates, and protection. Clothing and status became permanently linked in ways that persist even today. The Denisova cave needle is 50,000 years old and extraordinary. Whoever made it showed mastery of materials, planning, and fine motor control we would recognize as skilled craftsmanship even today. Drilling that tiny eye through bone without breaking it required understanding of pressure, angle, and material properties. This was not luck. This was accumulated knowledge passed carefully across many generations. One small needle opened a universe of possibilities. Sealed seams, shaped shoulders, fitted sleeves, layered insulation. The needle was the single key that unlocked wearable survival technology for all humanity. The difference between a drape hide and a properly sewn garment in extreme cold could be the difference between life and death. Sewn clothing trapped body heat with far greater efficiency always. Human population may have dropped to just a few thousand individuals during peak Ice Age conditions. Every single technological advantage mattered enormously for the survival of the entire human species. Groups that mastered clothing technology survived. Groups that did not disappeared. Clothing knowledge became as critical to pass on as fire-making skills or hunting techniques across every generation. With proper sewn clothing, humans could cross mountain ranges, survive Arctic winters, and reach regions no primate had ever entered before. Clothing literally expanded the geographic boundaries of human existence forever. The colonization of every continent was made possible in part by clothing technology. From the Americas to Australia to Northern Europe, humans arrived dressed and fully prepared for survival anywhere. As different human groups separated across continents, their clothing styles diverged. Clothing became a marker of cultural identity, distinguishing one group from another instantly and completely at a single glance. Even the dead were dressed with care. Burial clothing reveals that 50,000 years ago humans believed clothing mattered beyond death itself. Identity needed to continue somehow into the next world. When civilizations emerged, clothing hierarchy became law. Specific colors, fabrics, and styles were legally reserved for specific classes. Wearing the wrong clothing in the wrong place could be a serious crime. Purple dye was extraordinarily expensive to produce from sea snails. Wearing purple became reserved for royalty alone in many cultures. Clothing enforced social order through the power of color itself. Trade routes developed specifically to move luxury textile materials across continents. Silk from China, linen from Egypt, wool from Europe. Fabric trade shaped ancient economies and international relationships forever. The invention of the loom transformed clothing production. Instead of animal hides, humans learned to spin plant and animal fibers into thread, then weave that thread into entirely new fabrics. Different materials offered different properties. Wool for cold and wet environments. Linen for hot, dry climates. Cotton for warmth with breathability. Humans became specialists in matching material to environment perfectly. Clothing eventually extended into armor. Padded fabric, then leather, then metal reinforcements. The protective function of clothing expanded from natural hazards to human-made ones. Clothing became defense technology. Religious clothing created visual boundaries between the sacred and the ordinary. Priests, monks, shamans across every culture developed special garments marking their role as intermediaries between worlds. Specific colors for specific emotional states became cultural conventions. Black for mourning in Western traditions. White for mourning in others. Bright colors for celebration. Clothing became a universal emotional language. Fashion as deliberate aesthetic expression is ancient. Even in hunter-gatherer societies, certain individuals were known for particularly beautiful garments. Creativity and beauty in clothing go back very far indeed. Fashion cycles are not a modern invention. Clothing styles have risen and fallen throughout all of recorded history. What looks elegant in one generation looks completely ridiculous to the very next one. Every clothing choice is a communication decision. Even choosing to dress casually is a statement. Even choosing comfort over impressiveness says something very specific about your priorities and values. Uniforms represent clothing's power to create collective identity. Sports teams, military units, religious orders, school children. When we dress alike, we signal that individual identity yields to group membership completely. Even within uniform cultures, humans find ways to personalize. A pin, a fold, a color choice. The impulse to express individual identity through clothing is apparently too powerful to ever be completely suppressed. Clothing is the intersection of every uniquely human quality. Biology, creativity, social intelligence, toolmaking, cultural transmission. No other invention touches so many aspects of what it means to be human. Step back and see the whole picture. Millions of years of evolution removed our fur. Tens of thousands of years of ingenuity replaced it with something far better and completely controllable. The materials covering human bodies today would be completely unrecognizable to our ancestors. Synthetic fibers, waterproof membranes, temperature-regulating fabrics. But the fundamental purpose remains identical across all time. Children learn clothing norms by observation long before anyone explicitly teaches them. By age 3, most children understand that different occasions require completely different clothing choices and presentations. Clothing knowledge passed from generation to generation without formal teaching. Parents showed children. Children showed their children. An unbroken chain of human knowledge stretching back 100,000 years. From the very first animal hide thrown over bare shoulders to the clothes you wear right now, one single unbroken thread connects every human who has ever lived on this planet. Next time you open your closet, remember, you are performing a ritual 100,000 years old. You are the latest in an unbroken human line of self-expression through clothing. We get cold. We get creative. We get dressed. And then we spend the rest of the day complaining we have nothing to wear. Some things about being human truly never change at all. From lice to needles, from campfires to culture, the story of clothing is really the story of what makes us human. Choose wisely. Dress with intention. And until next time, thanks for watching.